Good afternoon, Nighthawks. This is Dr. H, and I just want to go over a few items. We'll call it a brief lecture for the Module 1, your Introduction to Databases. Databases introduce structure into stored data and allow a user to introduce rules, typically business rules, within the storage system. And so something to keep in mind, some of the main concepts in databases is a database is used to store data, organize data, and effectively retrieve data. A type of database that we'll discuss just momentarily is the relational database. A relational database saves interrelated concepts. One of the systems that we will be using in this course is SQL. SQL is a database management system. Another example of such system you may have heard of is Microsoft Access. And just keep in mind that a database introduces structure into stored data and allows users to introduce the rules, typically business rules, within the storage system, exactly as what I started off with. In other words, databases empower users to protect the data, which it is our obligation to ensure patient safety when it comes to data, and also to access data effectively when needed. So if we need to look at trends or illnesses or cures or things going on with any of our patients, we're of course going to pull this information from a database. Examples are in your PowerPoint and text of different databases and how they can be used, so make sure you take a look at that. Databases can have tables that represent entities within the organization. So we may be looking at the hospital, we may be looking at a specific hall or a group of rooms. If you're in a long-term care facility, we may be looking at the memory unit compared to the rehabilitation unit. So just something to keep in mind. These tables usually have relationships with one another to establish business roles. And the structure of tables in a database is called schema. So that's something you do need to know. Tables can include rules to ensure that specific data is not missing within a table, or that only certain data types are stored within a table or column. So definitely keep that in mind as well. With relational databases, these are going to be the most common. Unlike other types, there are document databases such as MongoDB. There are journal databases, book databases. There's several kinds out there, but we are mainly going to work with relational databases. In a relational database, you're going to have tables, and these tables are going to include rows and columns. Rows are the instances of the entity that the table represents, as well as columns represent the attributes of these instances. For example, the patient table will represent the entity patient in a healthcare organization. Some of the attributes of a patient might be the first name, last name. There might be date of birth, patient ID, address, phone number, zip codes. There's several and many things that could be depending on what your organization requires or wants. Once again, you can find more examples of this in your PowerPoint and text. Attributes can have different data types as well. There's number, text, date, true, false, binary data. Accessing the attributes per each instance. The system must consider possible similarities between patient names or physician names to make sure that there's not a misunderstanding or we don't cause bad data when pulling. Unique values are introduced to identify each instance and usually introduces a primary key in the table. Unique values is usually used as a key when we're searching data. There are also composite keys if adding a new key is not an option. Relationships are defined as connections of records within tables. Database relationships are defined in 3 different methods: one-to-many, many-to-many, and one-to-one. Relationships are already defined within the data model that is being stored. These methods will try to represent the relationship with accuracy within the database. Another term that you're going to want to make sure you understand or recognize anyway is ACID or ACID requirements. Ensuring the accuracy of transactions, it is essential. ACID stands for atomic, consistent, isolated, and durable. Atomic means that the transaction is indivisible. After the transaction is complete, the database must remain valid. Isolated means that while the transaction is running, no other task can change the data used in the transaction. And durable means that information that has changed must be written to the database. And we'll get into this in further detail, I believe, in the next module or possibly even module 3. Activities in the database management system, these are going to be known as transactions. The basic SQL or structured query language is what we'll be working with. SQL is a common language that is used for writing statements to interact with databases. SQL is a data manipulation language. SQL is also used for data definition language. SQL can be or is considered a foundational language. And you'll see or hear SQL statements. For statements or queries, we can use the table names where we need the data. We can also write the query to display the data in the format that users require, as well as updating records, inserting records, and deleting records. CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. And these are the basis of the tasks that we can run on data. Excuse me. Now keep in mind when we refer to data, there are several data types. Numeric, we're looking at integers and numbers with date, time, exactly as it says. We're looking at dates and times. Character strings will be referred to as characters. And then binaries used for images. When referring to null, null is the value used when there is no value or a missing value. Null is not a data type. We can search columns though, however, we can search columns based on null values. And we can learn as much from a null value as we can with data that have a true value. Excuse me. Primary and foreign keys, another term that you need to, a couple of terms you need to make sure you understand. The primary key is added to make rows in a table unique. If we use the name of an operation as a primary key, it might cause problems later. However, if the name is changed and referenced elsewhere in the database, the update could be a major issue. Excuse me. Relationship represents the connection between tables and entities. And that just gives you kind of a brief overview of the module. You can look in the module for Module 1 overview, and you'll be able to hear and read some of the same. Your PowerPoints are labeled as Intro to Discussion Board 1, or excuse me, Discussion Board. That tells you where my mind's at. Introduction to Databases. We also have a link that goes a little further detail on what a relationship database is, as well as Introduction to Databases and relational databases. There's a couple of good readings here also if you want to take the time to dive a little deeper into relational databases as well as SQL statements, and there's even some examples in there that you can practice with. Your assignment or activity for Module 1 that's due at the end of the week on Sunday is a quiz. It's an introduction to databases. You have multiple attempts with this quiz, and so you should get 100. But use these multiple attempts to familiarize yourself on what it is that you're going to be learning and what you're going to need to learn. Keep in mind with all quizzes are due at noon. The only exams you will take that are not going to be due at noon is your midterm and final. All quizzes, however, will be due at noon. Other than that, that's really all I have for you. We're going to cover a lot of the same material in Module 2. So be prepared for that. Outside that, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. I am always here and available for you. And have a great Nighthawk Nation day. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.